There were a lot of things that I would do that would get my dad really upset. One of the things that got my dad, I know the I don't think I can't remember my dad being very upset with me to that level, except maybe when I told him I want to become a pastor. He was very yeah. That is the one that it just tipped his head. But there's a time in our neighborhood, almost everybody had a bicycle. So I asked him for a bicycle I didn't have. I used to be carried on a bicycle when other people have their own, so he got me a bike. And so one guy who was really good at riding bicycles, I remember up to today, he was called Tashu. So Tashu, he would do a wheelie from one side to the other side. He could balance, he would do all these tricks. He suggested we ride our bikes to the airport.
A wheelie, for those who don't know, is riding a bike on one wheel.
Yeah, riding a bike on one wheel. So you pop the front wheel up and you ride for long distances. So he suggested we ride our bikes to the airport. Now the airport was from South Sea. Now the South Sea was closer to the airport, but it was still very far to the airport. And so he told us how fun it is because those days you'd be allowed to go say goodbye to people in the airport. You could see planes land and planes take off. And so we thought it was a very, very good idea. So we rode to the airport, halfway stopped, take water, road, we got there. And so in the airport, there's a place that people used to wave buy from, and there used to be a shop. So he had suggested that we buy biscuits. We share the price. I think that it cost about 13 shillings. So everybody would just put our cents together, and it was a big Marie biscuit box. And so I would share the biscuits and just watch planes go up and go down. So on our way back, my dad used to be at the Unilever side in industrial area. So from industrial area, he would just drive through. So I remember when we were just on Mombasa Road, there's a turning that goes into South Sea that is adjacent to South B. So, Bellevue, exactly. So there at Bellevue, I saw my dad's car on the other side of the road. Now he used to drive a branded car, and it used to have Kimbo. Yeah. So I remember, niliona fadhangu, I saw my dad coming. Yeah. I threw my bike into the bush and I dived right into the bush to hide. And because those days families were more communal, so when my dad saw everybody else, he was like, "What are you people doing here? This is so far from Mugoya. What are you people doing here?" And from Bellevue all the way to Mugoya was all bush. There are no buildings. The only big thing that you could see was the projector screen for Bellevue, because Bellevue used to be a cinema, a drive-through. I've forgotten the name, but you could.
I remember that. I remember there's a Bellevue movie area.
Exactly, and the big screen I think is still there. And so he saw us there and he was like, "What are you people doing here, Tashu? What are you people doing?" So he saw us and he said, "You people get home immediately." So he drove and went. So I remember after he had gone and they told me your dad has gone, I remember jumping out of the bush and I was like, "What on God's earth have I done?" Yeah. So I left them. I tried to ride my bike as fast as possible. We got to the area where we lived in Mugoya. Those days there were no gates in the main area in the compounds. And in estates there were no gates. Even to our house there were no gates. So at the main gate I went into somebody's house, washed my feet, did everything, tried to wash the bike to pretend like nothing has happened. I was just in the area. So dried myself up. So when I was riding to our house, we used to live in 583. So going there, my dad's car was not there. There was like, phew! Yeah, oh goodness, nimeponea. But when I opened the door, my dad was sitting in the sitting room. And the thing he said is, "You think I didn't see you?" So I got a good beating. Nilichapwa vibaya sana. So I got a thorough beating, and I got to understand why I was going there, because there are cars on the road, there are trailers, there are trucks on the road. It was very dangerous. There was no cycling lane. I was 10.
Wow.
So yeah, I was in standard 5, so I remember it very specifically. So he was happy, and so I gave my life to Christ in 1997. And for me it was a bit dramatic, because I used to be really afraid about sleeping and then dying in my sleep. And if I die in my sleep, do I go to heaven or do I go to hell? So I was really, really afraid. And so there was this day in 97, we were playing basketball in our neighborhood. And so in the dream, as I'm playing basketball in my neighborhood, I hear that Judgment Day has come. So when I hear Judgment Day has come, I kept on telling my friends. Now, in the neighborhood I used to live in, there are guys who used to wonder why I'm going to church on Sunday and not playing basketball on Sunday. Because Saturday was definitely a highlight, but then Sunday is now we can still play.
Yeah, there's free time.
There's free time. So they wonder why am I going to church on Sunday. So I used to tell them, hey, you guys need to give your lives to Christ, though I'd not given my life to Christ. And you guys come to church. I'd invite them to our church, but they wouldn't want to come to our church. So I said, Sawa. So in the dream, Judgment Day has come, and I remember telling them, I told you guys to give your lives to Christ. I told you guys. They're like, okay, Sawa, let's go see what it's all about. And in the dream, the angels were dressed in military fatigue, and they were on Humvees. So through rap, Humvees had just come in 1996 and before. So all the major rappers were in Humvees and all that. So I don't know if everything was just mixed up. But in our neighborhood was circular, but the main gate was at the far end, and the basketball courts were at the other far end. So if you're walking out, cars would drive out this way to turn around to go into the main road. But if you're walking, there's a shortcut in between. There are a lot of shortcuts in A states. So when I'm walking through the shortcuts, and I remember talking to them and telling them, hey, okay, we hope you guys will get into heaven and all that. So when I left the shortcut, I was alone. There was nobody with me. So I tried to look back and I was like, hey, where are these guys? So anyway, so we walked, and as I was heading toward, there was this big truck, and there was this angel. He was really, really tall, wearing military fatigue, African military fatigue. And he had this big book, a very, very big book. And it reminded me of in our school, in our library, then they would bring really old dictionaries, and they were really, really big. So he asked me for my name, and I told him Kenneth, and he was like, Kenneth who? Kenneth Ochola. And so like in dreams there, you can be looking at somebody this way, then you get an aerial view. So he has opened the book, and there's an aerial view. So it was alphabetic. So it was A, and then when he reached K, it started going through names, and there were many, many, many names. So it's going K, 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 K. So he looked and looked and looked and looked and looked and looked and looked, and then all of a sudden he flipped the page, and then it went to L. So he said, your name is not there. I said, no, there must be a mistake. So he told me, no, don't worry, there's enough time. So he checked again. So we checked, your name is not there. So at that point, I remember I started crying. I said, I'm sorry for the sins I've done. I'm sorry, please forgive me. I said, you don't worry, there's enough time, we can check again. And he was being very polite. So he checked again, and my name was not there. So he said, I'm sorry, your name is not here. Now you have to go toward his left. So he was pointing toward his left. And when I remember him pointing toward his left, was just a dark area, and I could hear people scream. But on his right side, where if your name was a really good club that was there, like a sports club. So he said, you have to go there. So I remember him saying, I have to go there. And I said, no, I'm not going there. So he became very upset, and he jumped off the truck. Said, you have to go there. So I was afraid. So that's why I woke up from my dream. And I woke up really scared. And so my dad used to put Gideon's Bibles on in our bedroom. So I said, okay, maybe I should just read the Bible. So I opened the Bible, and I opened to the book of Revelation. I just said, let me just open a book. So I opened, it came to Revelation, and it came to Revelation chapter 20, I think now, that those whose names were not found in the book of life were cast into the lake of fire. I said, God, crystal clear, I understand. So I knelt down beside my bed. I prayed the same prayer that Ken Pat Robertson used to pray, but now this side I made a conscious decision. So that's how I gave my life to Christ, and then that's how I made my intentions in church more intentional. And it was not just because it was the fun thing to do, people were there, it was fun, but I actually now sought to know what God is all about.